Okay, so some of you have heard some of this spiel from me. Last season, I gave a talk after practice. That was more giving you my background, since I was my first year head coach. This year, I want to talk about some training principles that can help you succeed not only in the sport, but Nick, is that a phone you're on?
It's a comb.
Phones,
Our team is weird.
combs, Legos. What's next? I don't even want
I
to
can
know.
start making noise. Wait.
Somebody bebop.
Hey!
How is
Alright.
my dribble that broken?
All right, let's be serious for a little bit. What would you consider to be a definition of the word training?
Ouch.
Ouch? Potentially. We'll get into that. Anybody?
Working to get better.
What?
Working to get better.
Yeah.
Being really sore the
Going
next
to
day.
practice and not
Awesome.
skipping for Star Wars movies?
Hey, yeah, it was a good
It was religious.
Is it? Okay. My definition of it is exposing the body to an unknown and uncomfortable stimulus and allowing it to adapt.
So deep.
Let that sink in for a second. Exposing the body to an unknown and uncomfortable stimulus and allowing it to adapt. Yeah, you guys have heard the term comfort zone, right? Go outside your comfort zone and that's how you grow. Well, it's true everywhere, especially in training. If all you do is show up to practice, swim easy laps, never push yourself, well, you're going to get really good at going to practice and swimming easy laps and never pushing yourself. Make sense? Is that you follow me on that one? Good. If you want to, say, go under 30 seconds on a 50 free, you have to train your body to swim at that speed. For most people, that is hard. They've never done something like that before. With practice, time and training, though, that becomes fairly easy, right? The more you train, the better you get at something. But the key is not just exposing yourself to it once, but over and over and over and over again. And then what do once you've gotten good at that? Do you just stay at that pace? Let's say you're trying to hold 15 seconds for 100 free per 25. It's a minute. What if all you ever do is swim 25s in 15 seconds? You're going to get really good at swimming 25s in 15 seconds. 100 frees in a minute. But you won't get any better. Pretty simple stuff, but it blows most people's minds when you explain it to them. Same principle would apply towards push-ups. And I use this analogy all the time because like 99.7% of the human population does not know how to do a push-up, proper push-up. All I ever see, especially with heat athletes, drives me crazy, is they get down on the ground and they do like this. That's their push-ups. What?
Arwen?
Probably should, but not right now.
Lead by
Can
example.
we sing her happy birthday?
No. Maybe
Maya
later.
should lead.
quiet.
So like I was saying, doing 1,000 really crappy push-ups is not just all of a sudden the magic push-up fairy is not going to wave her magic wand and one day you'll just magically be able to do it right. It's not going to happen. You're just going to get really, really good at doing them bad. Phrase practice makes perfect. Wrong, garbage, false. Practice does not make perfect. And this is where I love screwing with people, especially my dad. Growing up, he would always say, practice makes perfect, practice makes perfect, practice makes perfect. Then one day, I don't remember who told it to me. It was probably some coach I had. I wish I remembered, but he said to me, no, practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. If you practice doing something right, you're going to get good at doing it right. If you keep doing something wrong, you're just going to get really good at doing it wrong. So, funny story, one day my dad went off on his usual lecture. He's like, practice makes perfect. And I was like, nope. He looks at me just all aghast, like, how dare you question me? Practice makes perfect. And then I explained it to him, and he's like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. It was really cool. I love doing that to people. It's funny, I'll do that with my 10 under crew, and then a lot of times their parents will be watching. And I will make sure to say that extra loud so they all hear it. I'll kind of peek over, and their jaws will be on the ground like, what are you teaching my child? But then I go on to explain it, and they're like, oh, yeah, Coach Kevin knows what he's talking about. So, if anything, perfect practice makes perfect is another good definition of training. It is the definition of training. If you want to be able to do something right, you got to do something right. And you got to do it a lot. That's how your body gets better. And then once you've mastered that, you got to increase the intensity. You got to up the load, go faster, whatever it is you're trying to do. We call that progressive overload. So training at one level of intensity, be it in swimming, running, strength training, whatever. You got to keep upping the ante over time. And before long, what was once really hard for you to do, all of a sudden becomes really easy. And you wouldn't even bat an eye. It's real fun stuff. And that's one of the most satisfying things about being an athlete, if you do everything right. It brings up my next point. How hard should you train? This is where a lot of people get confused and a lot of coaches don't know what they're talking about. I had a insight a few months ago. It was probably back in the spring. I was doing a hard set of kettlebell swings. And in the middle of it, I'm feeling it. It's hard. I'm breathing hard. I'm not like to the point of exhaustion, but it was still very difficult. And in the middle of it, something in my head was like, I can't do this. Light bulb went off. I'm like, wait a minute. No, my form's still good. My breathing's still not out of control. I'm not about to pass out. I can still keep going. So there is a difference between I can't versus I don't want to. And my big insight was, as a coach, most of the time when an athlete tells me that they can't do something, what they're really telling me is they just don't want to do it because it's uncomfortable. I can't versus I don't want to. Most people, especially non-athletes, will never experience I literally cannot. I will always use myself, my own bad experiences, as an example of some times when I literally couldn't. So 200 butterfly, Spencer's favorite event, long course.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're thinking about adding it to the high school routine this year. Just for you. Exhibition event every meet. Right before your 100 breast.
You know how happy I would be?
See, that's crazy. I'm joking.
Yeah. But no, so I've had several. It took me way too long to figure this out. Nobody told me these things, and that's another important point I want to make. A lot of the stuff I'm teaching you is stuff that I wish people had taught me. This is from my own experience. So I love using the 200 fly as an example, but I don't really love it because it's pretty painful memories. I could show you some videos, and maybe I will one of these days, of 200s butterfly that I've swum, where I've gone out way too hard. And it gets to a point, Spencer, you probably experienced this, where your form completely collapses and you actually, literally, physically cannot keep going.
We did a set a while back, just recently, where it was a progressive amount of 300s butterfly. And every week you do more 300s butterfly. And you start off, and we've been swimming for a while, so we do 300 butterfly really hard. And we do another 300 butterfly, and like I said, you're on your third 300 butterfly, and you do free stuff. Like, your arms will not come out of the water. your head will not come out of the water. Like you're saying, there is a difference.
No matter how badly you want them to, and that, as a competitor, that it is a horrible, horrible, horrible feeling when you're in a race, something that you've been training for, and it's your focus, and your body has just completely failed. It's not fun. It's a sucky, horrible feeling, but I do also believe, and Coach James would agree, that it's important to experience that. Now, I'm not going to force you guys into that. You'll probably, in some practices, figure this out on your own by going out too fast on some sets. But the best I can describe it is if you've ever driven, say something's wrong with your car and you put your foot on the gas and nothing happens. The car just refuses to go, no matter how badly you want it to. It will not go. I know people who say you can will yourself through absolutely anything. These are people who have never experienced that before. There is a limit. Now, here's the other side of the equation. That point is so far beyond what you guys believe you're capable of. And the big reason for this talk is I want to teach you guys how to find that safely. Because my number one job is to keep you guys safe. And biggest part of that is training safely. There's a lot of bad trainers and coaches out there and dumb athletes who don't understand this, and they get sick or injured or worse. Stuff can happen. So where is that point? Where is that training zone? What I want to teach you is the indicators that you'll experience when you start approaching that threshold. So the biggest one, at least for me, in my case, is technique. If I get to a point where I am simply unable to maintain proper form on whatever it is I'm doing, you stop. You stop. Another one, your breathing. If you're at a point where your breathing is out of control, like say you're swimming freestyle, you're taking it, your breaths look like this. Butterfly, and this one's the worst because you're trying to keep your head out of the water longer than it should be, and that's pretty much impossible on butterfly. Any experienced swimmer could tell you that. That's another indicator. Your breathing has gone out of control. We call it a biomechanical breathing match. Pretty much any physical activity has one. Once you've lost that, you're done. In our particular sport, if your stroke rate, your stroke count starts getting way too high and it feels like you're just spinning your wheels and not going anywhere, that's another indicator. I don't want to go too in depth on this next point, but one of the best things you can do as swimmers is to learn your stroke count. Count your strokes. Maybe the best thing I ever did for myself as a swimmer was I got it into my head to naturally, automatically count strokes. I've been doing it for like 20 years now. It's a long time, but it helps you so much. So those are the indicators. You've lost your technique, your breathing has failed. If you continue to keep pushing that, yeah, you get sick, pass out. There's this really stupid, mistaken mentality that puking in a workout is a good thing. It's really dumb. Let's just talk about it. What does vomiting indicate? If your body is vomiting, what's it telling you? It's telling you to stop, but what exactly is going on? I'm not going to get too scientific. Your body has become full of toxins created by your exertions. It's become overly saturated with them, and it is expelling them. So if you're throwing up in a workout, unless you're sick, in which case you shouldn't be there to begin with, you have quite literally poisoned yourself. There's no honor or glory or whatever in that. It's just plain stupid. And now let's talk about what happens this is what we call training to fail. One of my favorite quotes, and you guys know I love my quotes, training to failure is training to fail. I'm going to go back to my own bad experiences on 200s fly. The reason that was happening wasn't because I wasn't in shape. Wasn't because I wasn't training hard. I was. The two times that come to mind, in front of my mind when I talk about them, I was in better shape than ever. The times that I went, I should have been seconds faster. But all I had done in training, and my coach didn't stop me from doing this, I would just go all out. I'd just go crazy all out, past the point of, lost my breathing, my technique was falling to pieces, crashing and burning, training to fail. Well, what do you think happened in a meet?
You failed.
I did the same thing because that's what I was trained to do. I was trained to do that. It sounds overly simplistic, but it's true. It's really, really true. And I see that happen, with less experienced swimmers in meets, especially the young ones. They go out way too fast and they can barely finish or don't finish and get disqualified. It's part of the process. But I don't want that happening to you. You may experience it at some point, maybe you already have. And it's okay. But it's not something you want to do over and over and over and over again. So going back to what I was saying about the principles of training, giving your body practice, if you go to failure in a workout, you will not be able to repeat that. You will not be able to repeat your desired pace. So let's say your goal is to hold 30 seconds per 50 on a 200 free. If you do your first one and you go at 25 seconds and the rest of them are, well, they're not going to be that good. If you went all out on that first one, the next one is not going to be as fast. And it's going to continue to deteriorate, and you will have only maybe a single one, maybe two of those 50s will actually be at the quality that you're trying to hold, that you're trying to practice. It's far better to do, let's say, maybe 3 of them, take a little rest, do another set of 3, take a little rest, and keep repeating that. Because guess what? Then you've given your body more exposure to that stimulus. It's practice. Don't think of it as a workout. Think of it as practice. You are practicing the desired pace. A little bit easier to picture is to use, again, push-ups as an example. What if you're trying to get stronger at push-ups? So you decide to do a bunch of all-out sets of push-ups. You're just going to go to fatigue every single time. First set, let's say you get 6. And that was as many as you possibly could before your body just said, no more, can't do it. You're not going to get that many on the next set. Maybe you'll get 4, maybe. You keep going. Next set, you might get 2. And that might be all you could do. You couldn't do another set. So 6 plus 4 is, what did I say? 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 2 is 12. What if you were to go stop a couple reps short? So instead of going all out on that first one, you only do 4. You're probably going to be able to repeat that again. Maybe again. And again. So you could do, let's say you did 4 sets of 4. That's 16. 16 versus 12. And the best part about that is your body's going to be fresh. You give it some more rest, you could do it the next day or maybe even the day after. If you go to fatigue too many times, as in the first case, the first example, it may be a few days, even a week, before you can duplicate what you did. So that's lost training time. You guys following me on that? The same principle applies to swimming if you're doing 25s. So like the sets we do on Monday is 8 25s on 30, holding your fastest possible pace. Let's say it's your goal pace for 100 is a minute, so that's 15 seconds. Maybe you're capable of swimming at 25 and 13 if you were going absolutely all out. But could you hold that for 100? No. So you train a little slower, you train at your goal pace, you're going to be able to repeat that a bunch of times. And the more exposure you get to that, the easier it becomes. And at that point, what do? Train at a faster pace. Real simple stuff. Very, very simple stuff. But you always need to keep in mind those indicators I was talking about. I, as your coach, can only watch you. I can look for them. I can see if your pace is deteriorating, like maybe you went out way too fast in that first one. And I know for a fact a few of you experienced this last Monday, and that's okay. That's part of the learning process. I know a few of you did. And like I said, that's fine. You're probably not going to do that again. Try and hold a little bit easier pace, get used to that, and then start going faster. But a lot of people, and I see this on my club squad, I've seen it here, I've seen it on other teams that I've coached, people just stop. I'm like, well, what's going on? They're like, well, I'm tired. Like in a perfectly coherent voice, barely breathing hard, I'm tired. I can't do it. No, they can do it, they just don't want to. There is what?
Something you think about is if you're doing that, like when you're training, you want everybody to be training with you, right? So if you're training, you're working so hard in a set, and you see someone barely out of breath sitting there while you're working super hard, you're not going to be happy. So that's not going to put you in the right environment to train harder, and so you're not getting better. They're not getting better. So by that person sitting on the wall, a little out of breath, that's just affecting everybody in the pool. Very self.
That's a really good point. Thank you for making that, Spencer. I was so fixated on these principles, but yeah, it creates a bad environment. Now, if something is actually wrong, like maybe you're experiencing some pain. That's okay. I didn't mention that indicator earlier. Maybe your shoulder is just completely on fire and you can barely raise it. Yeah, don't try and fight through that. There's pain you can fight through and pain you can't. You'll learn that with experience. But again, I don't know what you guys are feeling. I can only watch you. I can watch your technique. I can watch your times. Something I also try and observe, and a few of you know this, I will sometimes walk along for us it usually be the bulkhead, maybe I don't like doing it by the blocks, but I will just listen. If there's a lot of conversation going on, I know that people aren't trying. I know that people aren't trying hard enough. If I hear heavy breathing, not out of control breathing, heavy breathing, I know you guys are doing it. I know you guys are doing well. But again, I can only watch you. I can only observe, watch technique. If I tell you to stop, stop. Another great quote that I heard, a coach that I really respect and admire, he's a strength coach. He says, for some people, it takes discipline to go to the gym. For some, it takes discipline to stay out of the gym. So how would this apply to us? For some people, for some of you, if you like to go hard and just get after it, you need to know when to stop. And I know it's painful. You got to swallow your ego, even if you're like, man, I could gut through this. I can do it. It might be better if you stop if you feel like you're not going to be able to keep going at the desired quality. Before you push off that wall, you need to ask yourself, am I going to be able to repeat what I just did with the right quality, at the right pace, good technique, nothing's getting out of control? If the answer is no, don't do it. Don't do it. You're only going to set bad habits, train to failure, which is going to screw up your training for however long. Could be a day or two, could be a week, could be more. What are we all laughing about?
The birthday.
And then I looked at Arwen.
We should have crashed it.
We can just break down the wall.
Alright, listen up. So just what I was talking about. You need to ask yourself when you're in those situations. Number one, am I going to be able to keep going with the desired quality? Or two, and you're going to tell everybody does. Everybody says this themselves. I can't do it. I'm so tired. Everybody does it at some point in their athletic career. If they say they don't, they're a liar. Everybody says that. But just remember, when you catch yourself thinking, I can't, ask yourself, am I saying that because I actually physically can't go on, or because I just don't want to do it? Because it's hard. You got to be honest with yourself. And that can be tough at the heat of the moment. But again, be honest with yourself. Two sides to that coin. Number one, we don't want to see people just slouching off, sitting on the wall, but on the other side, we don't want people getting hurt and doing dumb things. Make sense? Working hard work, pushing yourself to your limit is honorable. Losing training time because you went too hard is not. Courage is a virtue, foolishness is not. Learn the difference. But with time, patience, training, you will. You got any questions or something, if you need advice or help in the middle of a set, ask me, ask Coach Crystal. It's what we're here for, to help guide you through that. That's about all I had. I hope this helps you throughout the course of the season. Does there anybody have any questions? All right, all good?
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.